guys see my Twitter? Did you guys see my Twitter feed where I put a little ode to Michael Thomas on there?
I did not. I did not see it yet.
Yeah, I put him on there. Happy to get him back on that practice squad. But I did mention maybe if we didn't see him back on the practice squad, maybe we'd see him back as Coach Thomas. I don't know. It's an idea, just an idea. But that's not the real news today, right?
Oh, no, it ain't. Even though I'm happy to see Michael Thomas back, the real good news is Joe Shiesty back at practice. Silence all the doubts, man. I'm happy he's throwing good footballs out there. He threw a nice deep pass to Charlie Jones, one of the best passes I heard. That was a great practice for him for today. Hey, man, we ready to get the ball rolling, man. Week 1, man, them Brownies, I don't know if it's going to hit them.
Man, especially after Watson's comments, I'm ready for that too. I'm ready for that.
Same.
Yeah, but Tim, it looked like you stole the sun from Pittsburgh over there. What's going on over the West Coast? You got sun?
No, it's cloudy, man. It's
okay.
Just, it's almost 6 o'clock and it's cloudy outside. It's been like this all day long.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Tim lives outside of Seattle, so he's used to that rain. And that 12th man, he runs around avoiding the 12th man.
Yeah.
Well, hey guys, let's get into this. Let's get into this show. We got stuff to talk about. Man, I love that open. That thing gets me going every time. Love it, love it, love it. For those of you watching on YouTube, thank you. For those of you downloading and listening to us on Spotify, Apple Pod, Google Pod, wherever you get your podcasts, thank you very much. We're here every Wednesday night. We record on YouTube, go live Thursday morning for your drive time on Thursday morning every week. We're giving you what you need here at Running Through the Jungle. I'm your host, Brandon Herriott, with your host, Justin Lacey, and our good friend, Tim Lyons. How's it going, fellas?
Going pretty good, man. Doing pretty good.
Doing good. Thank you, guys.
How's Cincinnati going, Justin? Starting to get hyped down there?
Oh, yeah, the weather's cooled off down here. It's not as hot and, brutal like in the upper 90s like it was last week and the weeks before that. It's sort of tempered off to this really low 80s-ish kind of weather where it just feels nice and breezy out. So Cincinnati's, ready for fall, I know, in terms of how everybody kind of operates around here. In terms of sports go, everybody's just ready for the Bengals at this point. We're still excited about FC Cincinnati. They just played an incredible match that they came to a draw. Well, actually, technically lost to Lionel Messi. They also just destroyed the New York team. And, I think they're kind of like in a dogfight with the Atlanta team there. But the Reds, they're trying to get their mojo back. They fell behind after the exciting spark in the midseason race that they had, taking the lead in the NL Central. But most importantly, while their magic sort of tapered off, everybody's ready for Bengals football, man. We trying to see this team go on a Super Bowl run. So Cincy is still thriving, but they're thriving because, like I said before, Joe Shiesty's back. He's back. He's shook off that injury, and he's back ready to get it going.
Yeah, I'm ready for campfires and hoodies. Pig roast, little pork belly for my guy over there, Tim. He's a pork belly guy, right?
I actually just made pork belly last night. It was delicious.
Got the smoker running. That's the weather I'm ready for, man. Get the campfire going, get the hoodie on. It smells like fall, like football. I love it. Love it.
I'm more of a brisket kind of guy. I like beef briskets. That's my thing. I like that.
I'm equal opportunity when it comes to smoked meat. I'll take it. So yeah, our guy Joe Burrow, I mean, it's great to have him back. I think all of us were pretty confident. We, kind of knew, um, Zach Taylor doesn't say much, but we kind of knew. I think we all kind of knew he was going to be okay. Um, I'm ready for the contract to be done, but I'm gonna leave that for another show. Leave that for another show.
Mhm.
But what I want to talk to you real quick about, not necessarily we're gonna get into the 53-man roster. True to who we are as a show, you're not going to see us go down every single name and break down exactly what they did, getting this long, monotonous, drawn out thing. We're going to give you some highlights of it. But I want to start with the structure of the 53-man roster before we talk about practice squad and interesting names. Structure of the 53-man roster, defense, we went 10 defensive linemen, 5 linebacker, 10 secondary, and 3 specialists. Really like where we're at specialist wise. Long snapper, great. Punter looks really good. And I think we might have the best kicker in the league this season. I drafted him in my first fantasy draft. I think Money Mac's going to have a hell of a year. I was a little bit surprised that we didn't get – I thought maybe they would go a 6th linebacker, just more so for – there's a lot of flexibility in our D-line. There's a lot of flexibility in our defensive backfield. And I thought maybe they would do it if they were going to foreshadow here, if they were going to move on from some special teams guys like, your Stanley Morgans, your Michael Thomases of the world. Maybe a linebacker would be another really good special teams player to fill that role. What are your thoughts about the defensive line? Secondary here going as far as the numbers breakdown. What do you think, Tim?
I think that they made some good decisions, and then there's some ones that I was like questionable of, why did they cut, not sign or bring back on, the practice squad, like Raymond Johnson. Why didn't they bring him back? I think.
And how did that get picked up by anybody else too? Like he put some really good film out there, and I don't understand where he's at.
Yeah, and he played great all preseason long.
Yeah.
I think he was the preseason MVP for defense, and for him not to be seen on that practice, at least the practice squad list, I was like, well, where's he at? Nowhere to be found. So, that was my, I'm kind of like, we had this guy missing, and he was the one that was missing for me. That is, I don't know about anybody else, but I know he was missing for me after seeing him during the preseason.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of missing, I would venture to say that if our first round pick looked as good as Raymond Johnson did during the preseason, we'd all probably be pretty fired up about it. So, I don't know, Miles Murphy. I mean, obviously not going to put him on a practice squad, nothing like that. And I think he's going to be good. I told you it last week. I think he is who I thought he was. Right now, he's very athletically talented. He just doesn't have the refined skill set. He's got some good guys to learn from. I think later in the year you might see some effectiveness out of him. But right now, it's a little bit out of the realm. Justin, I want to ask you about the offensive side of things, unless you got a defensive take you want to get out there real quick.
Well, as far as you can definitely ask me on offensive side, because you already know I'm going to come spit and fire with that too. But, first and foremost, I do want to talk about Joseph Ossai, because first and foremost, he had no reason to be playing in the final preseason game to illustrate him even getting hurt in the first place. I understand that he suffered a high ankle sprain. I think the reports will say he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So however the team is going to gauge that, whether they introduce him to the PUP list or he just going to just miss 4 to 6 weeks and then ultimately end up being 2 games. However the team decides that, obviously they're going to handle it the best way they know how. But I never thought that Joseph Ossai shouldn't have been out there in the third and final preseason game. And I thought in the second one against Washington, I'm sorry, Atlanta's, where he played enough football snaps and made enough impactful plays that he should not have been playing much longer than he did. So I get it. We're very cautious that we want to protect our guys from injury, but yeah, that was a strong feeling that I had regarding at least on the defense side of the ball for Joseph Ossai, because I think that he's in for a big year, and and it sucks that he's not going to be able to start the season the right way and the way he wanted to.
Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. After the way the season ended for him last year, like the image of him sitting on the bench after the penalty and losing to Kansas City is burnt into my memory. And then, the kid comes back after having an injury history, and our team doesn't play starters. Our team protects everyone. But evidently, for some reason, Ossai didn't make that list of people they wanted to protect, even though he has an injury history, and he looked really good. Last season, he played almost 400 snaps. Like, he's a piece of our team. He's not a journeyman. You know what I mean? Like, he was going to play meaningful snaps in game one, and had a possibility of being the kind of guy that can chase down a Deshaun Watson. So I agree with you 1,000% on that. And the way the philosophy is of the team really kind of baffled me, to be honest with you. But on the offensive side of the roster spot, man, there were some interesting things. This could have went a lot of different ways. 2 quarterbacks with the new rule that you get your emergency third quarterback. I think that's kind of the way the league's going to be now. Everybody's going to have 2. No one's going to really have 3. You got 4 running backs, 6 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, and 10 offensive linemen. What are your takes on that, Justin?
So usually I'm going to start with the wide receiver because that's an interesting list here. Usually they go with 7. They love having a deep pool of wide receivers, and we all thought that was going to be the case today. But they had cut Trent Taylor, and I believe he has signed with the Chicago Bears after getting released by the Bengals or waived. People want to use their terminologies, all that. But the interesting cut that was Stanley Morgan Jr. And a lot of people had him penciled in as the 7th wide receiver, usually because of his leadership and abilities on special teams. If people have followed this show, they would have heard me made a statement about Stanley Morgan that he could have been a surprise cut. And just because the talent pool in other areas is getting a little bit more rich to the point where you don't really need to keep 7 wide receivers. And instead, what I'm glad that they were able to do, and we'll probably go over this when it comes to the practice squad, is that they put him on a practice squad after essentially cutting him. Now, when we go to the running backs, now it's interesting here too, because we kept 4. Now, usually we do keep 4. Joe Mixon at the time, Samaje Perine, Trayvon Williams, and then Chris Evans was that 4th running back. But it's interesting if you look at the depth chart here. Chase Brown and Chris Evans you're going to see that they're going to be kind of like the 1-2 of the 2. Exactly what we were talking about before with the split back and the splitting of the carries to be featured as a number 2. Chase Brown looked good in that final preseason game. And then Trayvon Williams probably is going to insert himself as that new Samaje Perine role where he's in those special third down plays, just to do some pass protection. And then as far as the O-linemen go, I'm not surprised that we kept 10. I think you need to keep 10 because how many times are we going to keep getting injured on that side of the ball? You got to have depth. And it's just sort of surprising because usually you're used to seeing Hakeem Adeniji there. Well, he's gone now. Personally, one of my least favorite offensive linemen that's on this group is Trey Hill, but I understand why they kept him for guard center flexibility there. And then tight ends, we got 3 tight ends here. I would have loved to have seen them try to at least take the chance that Tanner Hudson was going to be a starter of the 53-man roster, not necessarily starting tight end, but on the 53-man roster, because at this point, personally for me, you've seen enough of what you saw out of Drew Sample. I get it. People love his blocking abilities, but it doesn't really seem that his ceiling is very high. He was an overdrafted 2nd-round pick at the time when we took him. Mitchell Wilcox, he's always going to be there, but at the same time, I feel like that maybe he's also reached his ceiling a bit too, but he's a nice piece, a nice depth piece to have. But Irv Smith Jr. and Tanner Hudson, if he gets his opportunity to play some games, those guys are like thunder and lightning in their own way. They're different, but they are very powerful in what they do. And I saw that out of Tanner Hudson when we watched him play in the final preseason game too.
Let me ask you a quick question. If, knock on wood, my dog's going to start barking now. If Irv Smith Jr., who has a history of injury in the league, if he gets hurt, do you think there's a possibility that Tanner Hudson not only gets activated, but sees some starting time? If he goes, if he goes,
I see what you mean.
You know what I mean? Like, I think he can go from practice squad to a starting tight end to me. If something happens in the first half of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts by the end of the year because of the way he looked in the preseason.
I wouldn't be surprised either. And quite frankly, if he does ultimately end up, catapulting up the tight end depth chart and becoming a starter, it would have been well deserved because right now he's sitting there on a practice squad. But yes, if that were to be the case, I think that they will probably go with a tight end by committee approach with Drew Sample Wilcox and involving Tanner Hudson in some of those packages. The name that I didn't even mention in the tight end room that you don't see is Devin Asiasi, because he was that just last season. But again, a guy who doesn't really have much of an upside to his traits. And it's at this point, it's like, even if you do hit an emergency wall where you have to sign a tight end just like right there because you really don't have anybody left, Devin Asiasi, give him a call. Hey, bring him back. We need you to play. Play a game. Yeah. So it's frustrating too because the Denver Broncos, and this was one of the things that was buzzing on Twitter a bit. Albert O, I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name, but Albert O was a tight end in Denver that was very well respected along the NFL community, that when he got cut or when he was waived by the Broncos, there was so many fans and so many people that were saying, oh man, we should be able to go and grab him. But what ended up happening is that the Philadelphia Eagles made a trade for him before he even cleared waivers, because they knew they're not going to be able to get to him when they clear their waivers based off the waiver claim list. So the Eagles made another championship level caliber move, man, and got another weapon for that offense, and that's good for them. But I think Albert O would have been perfect in this offense.
That's one of the things that the Bengals' way of doing things sometimes drives me nuts. They're not one to do that last minute trade. Gone out. They release their guys and let them go. They never try to wheel and deal. They never try to put somebody on just to trade them and move pieces around. Because if they did that, Jackson Carman would have been on the block. Somebody,
100%.
But I do disagree with you. I 10 offensive linemen with, you had Cody Ford and Max Sharping both play center at points. Both can play guard. I thought we had enough depth in that position. I don't think that Trey Hill was much better than somebody you could pick up off of waivers right now. It is the way he played, holding penalties, face mask penalties, false starts. Like, it just didn't do it for me. So I would have done 9 there. I probably would have kept the 7th wide receiver. Hey, lucky we found Shedrick Jackson on the practice squad, because I didn't think we would. I thought the guy looked pretty good. So that just my takeaway on the offense. I do want to, like I said, I got the ode to Michael Thomas, Stanley Morgan. We talked about, kind of an upset cut, but we're getting younger, and Zach Taylor said a couple things in his press conference. One, we're getting younger, and we have to get younger in order to pay some of the guys we've got to pay. So put it right out there in the open, things that we've been alluding to all offseason. The other thing that I thought was interesting when it comes to the running back room, he said, we know what Joe Mixon is. He's a great back on first and second down. He dismissed him as a third down back, his own coach. So that tells us right there, Travion Williams is going to be a third down back. I think they're going to give Chase Brown some opportunities there, and Chris Evans, because both of those guys are explosive. Chris Evans runs great routes, and he showed a better blocking this preseason than I've seen from him in the past 3 years. So I think everybody in that room is going to get some work. So pretty excited about that. Now, what I wanted to do was touch on a few names that I just find as interesting names. Maybe they do something, maybe they don't. Maybe there's a concern, maybe there's some excitement. So I'm gonna start with Tim here. I'm gonna give you, because I know you're a Notre Dame fan, I'm gonna give you Chris Evans from the University of Michigan. You're welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Chris Evans, he's been with us for how many years now? Is it 2 years, 3 years?
3. This is his 4th year. This is his contract year. That's why I said you guys will listen to you a little bit more about putting their nose in their block when they're in their contract year.
Yeah, Chris Evans, man, I honestly don't know what to do with that cat, to be honest with you, because he hasn't been really that productive, yeah, special teams wise maybe, but to put him back there with as a receiving back or third down back or even a first down back, he's made some plays for us in the past, but I don't know. I think he's practice squad material, and he's not going to be showing up on the starters.
Let me ask you a follow-up question, Tim. Do you think this is the year based off? Yeah, I'm about to say, well, you got to take your Notre Dame bias aside. I got a follow-up question for you, Tim, regarding Chris Evans. Based off of his production that he played, because he's also been practicing very well too. Do you think this is the year that he puts it all together?
No, absolutely not. No, he might flash the pan every once in a while. Make some good plays or first down, maybe even get a touchdown. But I don't see him. I don't see him being a big impression for us at all.
What do you think, Justin?
I was very high on Chris Evans after he showed me a lot in the first couple of preseason games. He didn't play in the last one. He didn't really need to, in my opinion. I think the coaches saw enough. I am going to on a disagreement side on the fence here. I think that this is something that speaks volume. He's playing like that. His job matters, and he don't want to be left. Yeah, he don't want to be left out in the cold here. There's a perfect opportunity to kill this, to just go and chase and take this number 2 running back spot. All the fans are just clobbering at the teeth that Chase Brown become that. But we got to remember, Chase Brown was also a late round draft pick too, and he got to figure it out himself. He looked good against Washington, but that was also a Washington team that was only featuring second and third and fourth stringers too. And their defense is not as lit as what we saw during the first couple of weeks. And the O-line was also bad too. But I think that Chris Evans, I just think that I'm looking at it as a glass half full kind of guy. But I do understand that this is it for him in the sense of you got to show something, because if not, you'll probably not even be on his roster next year or be practice squad material, as what you said, Tim. But my fear is, because the Bengals never figured it out with how to utilize his talents, because his talents are there, another team that with offensive explosion firepower kind of caliber can and get the best out of him. And next thing you know, they have themselves a next Tony Pollard, and we're sitting on our hands like, oh man, we should have did this and should have did that. That could happen too, because we've seen this fan base do it plenty of times. But at the same token, since it's like, if that does happen, we should be a good enough team to overcome it, because we have a deep enough roster, because we know how to draft and develop guys, and our running back core too, in my opinion. We should already know how to overcome that if that were to be the case. But I tend to think the opposite with Chris Evans, and I just think that this is his true prove it year, and I think he will. I think he'll take it. And he literally may run with it. I used a little pun there.
It was very punny. Very punny. Well, we have reached that point of the show where we're going to take a quick break. If you're watching us on YouTube, we're just going to pause for a quick second. But for those of you listening on audio only on podcast. We will pay some bills real quick, and we will be right back. All right. Thanks for hanging in there with us. We are running through the jungle. We host Brandon Herriott with your host, Justin Lacey, and our repeat guest, Tim Lyons, coming all the way from the West Coast out there. Poor air quality country. Everything above you is on fire. Watch out.
Hey, Snoop Dogg's in the house.
He's in the Pacific Northwest too, so
Yeah.
more rainy than anything. I would think out there.
Yeah. That side of Canada is on fire right now. They're getting some pretty bad air quality.
Right.
Old Snoop Dogg show back up.
Well, I do have some more names for you. I want to get some takes from you. What you thinking? Where you going with it? So, Justin, you are up. I'm gonna switch to the other side of the ball here. What are your feelings or take on Nick Scott?
Nick Scott. Okay. I think he was on the receiving end of a pretty ugly looking, trampling stiff arm by Bijan Robinson when we played Atlanta. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm kind of tired of seeing it.
A lot of people are gonna have that.
Yeah,
I think a lot of people are going to see that this year.
Yeah, and I'm kind of tired of seeing it. And quite frankly, I'm not just talking about his beginning tenure with the Bengals. I'm talking about when I've seen and watched film on him with the Rams when he was playing against other powerhouse teams. Week 1 against the Bills last year, man, Josh Allen just stiff-armed the living hell out of him. And it looked ugly. It looked ugly. And then, he gets – again, I understand that the Rams were in a really difficult position with their injuries and you have to gut the roster and all that stuff. But Nick Scott was also still part of the team that won the Rams the Super Bowl, even though we know that the Bengals should have won it, as Cincinnati fans know. I still think that Nick Scott gives you veteran presence. I still think he gives you veteran leadership. And my previous take before about Jordan Battle superseding him to take his spot in the starting role mid-season, I'm not going to move off of that part as a take, but I don't think it might happen this year because I think Jordan Battle struggles mightily and he got to figure it out too. He did not look promising his last 2 preseason games, especially that last one. It didn't look like he was getting his head around the swivel just right off the bat. There was too many wide open plays. There were too many busted coverages that the ball was getting thrown under, missed tackles. He was a part of some of those things. He has to mature and develop. So therefore, Nick Scott is going to take that spot and hold on to that for a while, and it may be for the entire season. But the good news is he's paired alongside with Dax Hill, and I think that those two will involve a greater tandem to where he can sort of be more of a slightly better version of Von Bell, while Dax Hill can be the true safety that can be very impactful if his athletic prowess holds up.
The one thing we miss, and you hit on it with kind of hinted towards it, I should say, with the stiff arm thing. We don't have a thumper anymore.
No, we don't.
We just don't. I mean, and listen, today's NFL, I mean, do you need a thumper? That's probably a 15-yard penalty every year or every game anyway. You're not allowed to hit people. So I don't know. I wish we did. I wish we had somebody that was a little more of an intimidating tackler. But we don't. I mean, we're playing the hand we're dealt right now. I could see Anderson ended up getting some playing time there. I could see a lot of different things. There's a lot of movable pieces with Dax and DJ Ivy and DJ Turner and all these other guys. Like, there's some interesting characters on it. So we'll stay in this realm. We'll stay in the defense here for you, Tim. I'm going to give you the DJs. Got a couple of defensive backs. DJ Ivy, DJ Turner, looking pretty good so far. What do you think of the DJs?
I know DJ Ivy, he made some good breakups during the preseason. DJ Turner, he made some good plays. He made some good stops on defense. I think it was against Atlanta. I think he had a couple of good stops. I think having those young kids, coming on, I think it's promising. It's promising to, give Awuzie and Hilton, some more support, in the cornerback realm, and then of course, you can't forget the DJ of them all, DJ Reader.
Well,
I know
hopefully
he's
they'll
not a
drop
corner.
him in the coverage.
Yeah, if we're not, he ain't dropping into coverage, but we still can't forget about DJ Reader, the beast in the middle.
Yeah, he definitely is a big key to our defense. Like we're different. We're a totally different defense without him.
Mhm.
I really like DJ Turner. I think, man. Well, first of all, you can't teach speed, but
Yeah.
he really does trust himself to make that read and turn his hips, and he looks fluid to me. I mean, do you think he's going to see significant time, or him or DJ? Ivy. I think Ivy could do that role later in the year when you're looking at the Trey Flowers role that we had last year or something like that. But
Right.
Starting off, I don't think he's going to be seen a ton. But what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't know how tall Turner and Ivy are. I don't know
Ivy's
if they're
taller. Ivy's taller. I think Ivy might be 6'1". DJ Turner like 5'10", something like that.
5'10", 5'11". So, later on in the season, like when we're playing against, Kansas City, they might bring the bigger, Ivy in, to actually cover Kelsey and, Kittle, because we are playing against the 49ers too this year, the bigger tight ends. I think Turner's speed is going to help us out, is going to help us out in the end. But, sometimes speed and making those decisions could cost them too. So, hopefully he has maybe a, fast speed, but in his mind, the play recognition is just slow and he can actually make the correct,
Yeah.
the actual, correct reaction, to the actual plays.
Yeah, I almost hit that dead nut, by the way. DJ Ivy 6'1", 5'11" on DJ Turner.
Okay.
So that was close, man. That's off the top of my dome. That's not bad.
No, not bad at all.
All right, I've got two names left. Justin, who do I want to give you? I'm gonna give you an easy one here. Andre Yoshivas. What are your thoughts on
Oh
that,
man,
gentleman?
another preseason star. I expect high things from him going into his first year. He actually might very well see the highest production volume out of this rookie class because of the side of the ball he plays, the position that he plays, and the quarterback that he's ultimately playing along with too in Joe Burrow. I get it, man. People are high on our trio. No one's more high on our trio than me, and I think that our trio is going to have a special year along with Burrow, of course. But you got to develop new weapons along the way. I'm not sure if Charlie Jones is ready to take that spotlight yet, but I truly feel like Andre Yoshivas could. At some point, you got to think long term when it comes to this receiving core and think to yourself, who's going to still be with us when the days of the trio is still like the big three guys, the Migos, as what some folks like to call them, go different directions. Like whether if it's Tyler Boyd, he goes somewhere else. Let's say if T. Higgins doesn't necessarily sign a long-term extension that we're all fearing. Jamar, I think we're pretty confident he is going to sign that lucrative extension next offseason. But you just never know when it comes to these things. And you got to have bodies waiting in the wings and actually show active production. And that starts this year. To me, I think that's Yoshi all preseason long. I'm seeing him doing back shoulder catches, and it seems like that's their bread and butter makeup of the offense. That's because Joe Burrow instilled that within this team. Another thing is he's very good with the selling of the fade in the back corner of the end zone just to peel a little bit into the middle of the end zone because that touchdown pass that Jake Browning threw to him, that was off of a fake where the defense was trying to cheat the coverage, and then he was going to go to the back left corner of the end zone. But instead, he sold that after Jake Browning looked off the different defender, and he came back in the middle. Boom, he sees Andre Yoshivas wide open. That's that intellectual ability that I'm seeing that Andre Yoshivas do on the field. That Princeton knowledge is paying off in the NFL so far. And I think he's going to learn a little bit through the growing pains, obviously. But I think by mid-season, going into the back into the playoffs, you might see some big plays from him. And I would not be surprised if and when that happens. So I'm very high on this kid. And I think that he is going to show the world that he is going to be a future Bengal. I mean, he's a current Bengal now, but he is going to be a future star of the Bengals.
I like it, man. The guy's obviously exciting. And man, do I tip my cap here to Duke Tobin and the staff. I mean, to pull a guy out of the Ivy League and see whatever they saw in him, thinking that he could be ready, and they're in win now mode. They're not getting pieces that they want to be good in 3 or 4 years. So, you know, after taking kind of a project in round 1, then to turn around and get back in these later rounds and see somebody that you might be able to flyer on, it might be able to help you sooner than that. Now, I don't think that maybe they did, but I would think that they were thinking next year this guy could be a good help, right? Because we got some contract issues. Are we going to be able to sign Boyd and Higgins and da-da-da-da? Who knows? But that's what I think they were thinking. And then the guy comes in and he seems pretty undeniable right now. You know, can you keep him off the field? I don't know. I don't see it. Charlie Jones being the older of the two, the more polished of the two, what he did to Joey Porter Jr. when they were head to head, catching 153 yards and 2 touchdowns last year. Like, I gave him the nod going into this. I wish he wouldn't have had the shoulder injury. Playing through that labrum tear has got to be terrible. But he did, and Yoshi took advantage of it, man. Made the most of his time. So I'm really excited to see what the kid does. Tim, you agree?
I do. You know, he impressed me. I was, watching the Commanders game the other night, and he threw that back shoulder to him, and he just reacted. And I know there was another play. I think it was Jake or Simeon. I forget who it was. It was a bad pass, and he just grabbed it. I think he is very smart.
There were a lot of bad passes this preseason.
There was a lot of bad passes, and he caught them. He adjusted his catching, and he caught the balls. I think he played well. I personally think that he's probably he might edge out, Charlie, old Uncle Charlie, or whatever they're calling him now in the locker room.
Chuck Sizzle.
Chuck Sizzle. That's what it is. Chuck Sizzle.
Chuck Sizzle.
Yeah, he might edge him out, but Jones has also been playing with with that shoulder, that whole shoulder injury. So who knows?
So I before I get into the my last name here, if you're watching us on YouTube, take a quick second, hit that thumbs up, that like, hit that little bell, get those notifications. If you are on Spotify, Apple, Google Pod, whatever you're on, subscribe, like, share us with friends. We need to get more and more built behind this so we get more and more content out to you. We actually just had a quick meeting on Monday. We're going to be doing a preview show. Is going to the day before we play, because we have a lot of primetime games. So we're going to have Thursday games. We're going to have Monday games. So we're going to be hitting Saturday, 5 a.m. You're going to get a preview show from us. Post-game show. Tim, you don't have to get the big eyes on that look. You don't have to get up and record at 5 a.m. I don't know if you know this, but this drops at Thursday at 5 a.m. We're recording it Wednesday night. So you're gonna get that preview on day before 5 a.m. So you're gonna get post game show, the coach's cliff notes, where we're gonna watch the press conferences afterward and sift through the coach speak and give you a little bit more of a nugget that you might be able to actually take something away from, rather than trying to get through all the coach speak and the hard questions. And we're going to cut through the BS for you and say, he said nothing, or he gave us this, or whatever it might be. So we're going to have more and more of those. Cut to the Chase is going to be back on its regular time now. Chase is moved in. He is now a native of Cincinnati. So he is down there in the Queen City. So a lot of things coming up from us. We're going to be doing. I'm kind of back and forth with what I want to call a show. We're going to do a show. There's a lot of Fans First Sports Network channels out there. So if you've got somebody you want to watch, something you want to listen to, whether it's another team you like, your best friend's favorite team, whatever it might be, or if you just want to spy on who we're going to be playing next week, we're actually going to start having those guys on. Reached out to John from the Browns channel here, and we're going to actually probably have him on next week. So we're going to do something like that. I think I'm leaning towards calling it Strange Love, because, man, I'm not one of those fans that get too overly excited about other teams or rooting for other teams or whatever. It takes two teams to play this game. I'm not going to be mad at you for not rooting the same team I root for. I don't care. So it's, I show love to these guys. So even though they're not wearing our colors, I'm going to show them some love, have them in here. We're going to talk about the upcoming game that week. So I think I'm leaning towards calling it Strange Love. I don't know. It could be. I thought about Sleeping with the Enemy. Thought that was a pretty good one too. On the Steel Curtain Network that I do a podcast on, they call it Know Thy Enemy. That's actually how I got started with that. But yeah, who knows? We'll see. But we're going to do a lot of stuff, a lot of previews, a lot of post game, all your Bengals coverage right here on the Runnin Thru the Jungle Network. So lots to come. So the last one. I've teased this one up about as much as you can for a practice squad player, right? Drafted in the third round, 2018. Did not have a very good start to his career. Circumstance does a lot for a player. And once the Dallas Cowboys jumped up and got Trey Lance, it led this player to not have a seat at the table anymore. And kudos to the Dallas Cowboys for giving Will Grier basically the entire game in the third preseason game to put out audition tape. And boy, did he take advantage of it. It's funny, like, with being in that situation he was, and not being signed by anybody and free to go wherever he wanted. He saw an opportunity, and he packed his bags and was on his way up Cincinnati. So I'm happy to have him here after what I saw in the preseason. Will Grier played for West Virginia, came out, he was a little bit older. He's 28 years old now. A vet, sat on the Cowboys bench last year. Boy, did he sling a rock that third game. But he had to look at it and say, hey, I got Jake Browning in Cincinnati to be the backup to Joe Burrow. Being in the NFL is a pretty good gig. I think I'm going to give it a shot. So, what are you guys, what are your takes on Will Grier? You got anything for me, Justin?
I do. For those listeners, I want to make sure I do a little bit of a slight correction. He was originally a third-round pick to Carolina in 2019 out of West Virginia University. So I just want to get that clarified. But yeah, it didn't work out from Carolina, obviously. And obviously this past offseason, he was playing with the Dallas Cowboys. But this particular game spoke a lot of volume about him taking the most out of his opportunity. I actually got his numbers right here. Threw for over 305 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, 45 rushing yards, additionally with 2 rushing TDs in the blowout win over the Raiders. That shows me as a guy that wants to be able to have an opportunity to make a team, make a roster, even if it is practice squad. It also shows me that he understands where his place is in the league for now, but when the opportunity rises, he will do the best he can to take full advantage of it. And I'm not saying that he's going to be out there and outplay Joe Burrow or anything like that. Nobody is really. I mean, that's just not. I don't think that's going to happen. But it does show me he got a lot of heart. And we've been talking about moving off of Trevor Simeon. I'm very glad the Bengals came to their senses and released Trevor Simeon because the guy just wasn't good. And Jake Browning, I'm glad that he stuck around because he did show a little more promise, even though he wasn't as good. He showed some promise in the last preseason game finale, and also a little bit more in practice. But Will Grier is the perfect opportunity to where you see upside to where he does have a great chance of beating out Jake Browning and being the number 2 quarterback on the depth chart. So that will make me feel a little bit better of if something were to happen to Joe Burrow for a few games. I'm not thinking worst case scenario like a lot of people are. What if Burrow missed the whole season? Look, Joe Burrow, you gotta throw a bullet in his leg or something like that to take him off the field. That dude is tough as nails. But going back to Will Grier, I also understand that fans would like to have like the sexy name only, backup quarterback names that everybody throw all across the league, like a Gardner Minshew or something. That's a hot name, to have as a backup quarterback. Cooper Rush, even Mike White. I like Mike White, based off what he did to us. But at the same time, Will Grier can be all of those guys that we've all hoped for in case something happens, and he showed it. So I'm very happy that he chose to come here. And I did listen to his last little bit of interview there, and I can't wait to see what this kid's made of.
Yeah, it is kind of funny that we were looking at Cooper Rush in the offseason, and then we ended up with his backup, Will Grier. But yeah, I mean, the guy earned a spot. I mean, he deserved to be on a roster after that game. He kind of reminds me of Mike White a little bit. I think he's a little more under control. Doesn't take quite as many chances. But I don't know. Like I heard Colt McCoy's name getting thrown around. The last 24 hours, and I'm like, what is that going to prove for you? Like I don't know. I think you know what that is. Not that Colt McCoy seems like a great teammate and maybe a decent extra coach carrying the clipboard kind of guy, but I'd rather get somebody out there who can slang it a little bit. Tim, you got anything to say about it?
I was actually thinking that the Bengals were going to sign Zappa, because Zappa he's not a bad quarterback.
Yeah, Bailey Zappi.
Yeah. Zappa. I forget what his name is. But anyways, that's who I thought we were gonna, try to get. And then I was looking at all the quarterbacks that were available after the cuts, and I was like going through the list, and I saw Will Grier. I was going through all 32 teams to see what quarterbacks got cut. And I was like, somebody said, "Oh, Cooper Rush got cut." I'm like, I call BS on that one. So then I looked to see who it was, and I was like, Will Grier. I was like, didn't that kid just pass for like 300 and some yards, 2 touchdowns, and ran for 2 more? I'm like, wow. And then last night we get the push, Bengals signed Will Grier, and I was like, oh, that's a great pickup. 28 years old. Last game he played, he had 35 attempts, completed 29 attempts, threw 2 touchdowns, ran for 2 touchdowns. That kid's going to have heart. I believe that give him a couple weeks and he might be the number 2. He might be the number 2. Give him a couple weeks to learn Zach Taylor's playbook, and don't forget Zach Taylor, he's a QB guy, so if Grier gets that chance, learns that playbook, and like you said, knock on wood, if anything ever happens to our number 1 quarterback, Joe Burrow, but it's promising, and he actually showed it. He showed it on Saturday that he's not done. He's not done. He give him a chance, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, not playing against ones, but I mean, he still threw some dimes, man. Threw some
Steelers fans are, the thing is that Steelers fans are making a big deal about what Pickett did against number twos. Hey, I'm going to give Greer.
Did you watch the Browns and the Chiefs?
Oh,
Deshaun
my
Watson
goodness,
talking all kinds of smack about playing against threes and twos. I'm like, come on, man.
Yeah,
right.
Then talk about it's going to be fireworks when he play the Bengals. Like, come on now.
It
is going to be fireworks.
It's going to be a tough game. It's going to be a tough game. They've proved that to us over the past, I don't know, 6-7 years. So,
yeah,
we got a tough division.
I respected them being a worthy challenger as a competition, of course, because they have had our number. But to be perfectly honest, this is a little early teaser going into next week. After we have figured them out in that final game we played them here in Cincy, that was all I needed to see in the way that they won that game and just kind of obliterated Cleveland. And it just makes me feel like that this wasn't a nail-biter victory. This was us showing that, you're not going to really have our number like that moving forward. We still respect you as opponent because you still got that dude Myles Garrett rushing the passer. But like you're not on our level, and we're going to show you that week one. That is me throwing a bold, ain't really a bold take. That's throwing a hot topic out there for you.
I like it. All right, Tim, any parting shots? Anything you want to say to the folks before we catch out of here?
I'm excited to see that Joe B's back, back practicing. I also saw that Awuzie is looking good. He's getting there. He's looking good. I'm excited to see what is to come. Also, don't forget to check out From the Jungle, the little video show or TV show that the Bengals did just for the team, kind of like their hard knocks, but they actually produced it themselves. I started watching episode 1. They brought in OJ, or not OJ, I'm sorry. What's our left tackle's name? Brown.
OJ Simpson.
Yeah, OJ Simpson. The Brown. They brought in Brown, was introducing to everybody. He seems like a good
Orlando
cat.
Brown
Orlando
Jr.
Brown. Yeah, sorry.
He's pretty awesome.
So check that out too on the Bengals app. It's free.
Nice. Justin, parting shots. What you got?
Get ready for the season. Like Deshaun Watson said, it is going to be fireworks, but it's going to be for our team.
It'll be 10 days when most of everybody, and this is going to go up late Wednesday night. So we got 10 days when most people are going to hear this. So, man, it just seems like the off season's 10 months long. I know it's not, but it just seems so long. I'm excited. I really think this team does have something special. I think we get the safety play that we expect to out of those guys. I think the sky's the limit, man. I really think they could do some special stuff. We got to stay healthy. So here's the Joseph Osai getting back, getting that ankle healthy. I kind of hope they rest him for an extra week or two. Wouldn't mind if they pup listed him and went and got Raymond Johnson back. But yeah, man, September 10th, too far away. I'm ready for it. So we're gonna get out of here. Again, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for hitting the like button. Tell a friend. Tell them to tell a friend. Tell that friend to tell their friends. Tell the auntie, uncles, nieces, nephews, whatever. Get as many followers as you can on this, on the channel, on the show, on all the podcasts. Support our fellows. Support the Fans First Sports Network. With that, I'm Brandon Herriott for Justin Lacey and Tim Lyons. Catch us next week, Wednesday night on YouTube, Thursday morning as we're running through the jungle.